Praise the Lord. Hallelujah, Jesus. Oh, you are so wonderful and so mighty, God. Oh, we exalt you, Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, yes. There is power in the name of the Lord. Amen. We should never forget that. We should never forget that there is power in the name of the Lord. Go to the Lord in prayer for Sister Perry's mom. She's in lots of pain. And I understand that she has a high pain threshold, so for her to say that she's in pain means that she's in pain.
Yes.
If we can also pray for Gwen, someone that Sister Rachel goes and visits and helps, and she needs strength. She suffered a stroke and she needs strength. She's having a tough time moving her arm. And I know Brother Lau as well. He's got pain in his back. Amen. It's not me. Amen. He's got pain in his back. And no one likes to be in pain. Amen. It's uncomfortable. And if we can also pray for Sister Cormier as well. Amen. God can do the work. Amen. We just have to step out in faith. And I really feel that there's faith in this place today. Let's pray together. Lord, you are worthy and you're mighty. We're so thankful that we can come to you today. Lord, you see every situation and every need, God, that is going on. You see every ailment. Lord, every sickness, every disease, mighty God. As we stand before you today, I ask that you would touch Sister Perry's mom, that you would reach down upon her today, that you would take away the pain that she is feeling, God. Lord, that you would touch Gwen, that you would help her, God, that you would give her the strength that is needed, God. Lord, I ask that you would touch Brother Lau, that you would take away the pain that's in his back, God. That you would touch Sister Cormier, God, that you would move upon her body, God. Oh, Lord, as we call upon your name, God. Oh, we thank you, we glorify you, Lord. Hallelujah, Lord, I ask that you would touch this city, God, that you would move through every neighborhood, God, that you would break any stronghold, any barrier, God, that there would be a release of your spirit upon this city, God, that you would lead us to those hungry souls, God, that you reach into the backslider's lives, mighty God. Let's magnify his name. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Man, I'm so thankful that we serve an awesome God. Amen. Brother Cormier, I was wondering if you could take up the offering for me, please. You may be seated. Amen. It's good to be in the house of the Lord. Amen. Amen. There's a sweet presence of the Holy Ghost in this place. There's peace in this place. Amen. So one place you can always come is in the house of the Lord and always just feel at peace. I remember, I think I've shared this with you before, when I used to go visit Brother and Sister Myers, I'd have to sleep downstairs because Andrea and I were not married yet. At first, I was scared to sleep in the basement. But I felt privileged because it was a church. And as soon as I laid there, there was just a peace. And I was always looking forward to go sleep downstairs because I started to understand the Lord and I didn't know how to pray, but just talk to Him. And I just felt so comfortable. And that's what I feel here tonight. Amen. It's just such a great peace. And just God is in this place. Amen. We're on our lesson 4. Seems like we're moving at a snail's pace, but that's okay. Amen. At the end of it, I'll print off all the little notes and everything that I have at the end with all the questions and reflection questions and that you can store away or put somewhere if you forget about them. That's okay as well, but they're good to when you find them. I always come across some things that I have gone through with Brother Enns, and I'm like, wow, I didn't realize we went through this. Don't get put up on. Excellent. So we're on be a leader. Be a leader. And I really believe anyone can be a leader. You don't have to be put into a position of power to be a leader. It doesn't. You can be a leader at home. You can be a leader on the school ground, at your job. You don't have to be a manager to be a leader. But there's sometimes in life we fail. We fail sometimes. Sometimes we fail a test. We fail if we're trying to build something. When I was learning how to build things, I'm still not a good builder, so please don't ask me to try to build one of these, a pulpit or anything like that, because it would be a little crooked. I'm not a good builder, but I'm learning. And everyone fails sooner or later. That's just a part of life. And there's nothing wrong with failing. There's nothing wrong. It's just something that happens. And there are things on the road of life that we would like to forget. Past sins, fears, mistakes, disappointment, and heartaches. Those are things that we like to forget about. But sometimes we just know that was life, and we have a memory, and sometimes our memory plagues us. And failure is very hard on everyone. If you've ever been riding your bike and learning how to ride a bike, and you fall off your bike, and it's a failure for a child. And they hit the ground, it's not very fun when they have to get back up, and they get scared. They don't want to try it again. No, it's not fun to get hurt. And failure is hard on leaders, parents, and everybody. And we don't want to fail, but I want to tell everyone it happens. That's just a normal part of life, and I'm going to say that lots throughout this teaching today. And we have seen how failure can affect people. Sometimes failure can devastate people because they're not sure after the failure that has happened, they're not sure how to get back up. And sometimes how to face the people that they have failed. The hardest part of dealing with failure is ourselves. A lot of people are forgiving. Most people are forgiving. You made a mistake. Hey, you failed. It's okay. Not a problem. But it's ourselves. We beat ourselves up over and over again. Saying, I can't do that again because I have failed you. But we have to try again. Right. It's hard to face failure, and people do not want to admit that they have failed. That means you have to admit that you were wrong. Oh, no one likes to admit that they're wrong. If you're in a relationship, you don't want to admit that you're wrong. And so you kind of begin to butt heads because no one wants to say, you're right, I have failed, or I have made a mistake. But when we fail, that's when God arrives. We are not perfect. Amen. And I said that a little bit last week. He turns our failure into strength. Hallelujah. He creates great leaders. It creates great Christians. Not good Christians, but great Christians. But we have to accept that we have failed. We have to accept those things. The book of Exodus tells us that the Israelites prospered in Egypt, and as time passed, a problem arose. There arose a new king. Exodus 1:8, and this is easy reading version. It says, "Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Hold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we." With a new king comes new rules. It's like that in management. With a new manager becomes a new set of rules. And sometimes those rules aren't very good. They're not what the old manager used to have. And usually with a new manager, so new rules meant cleaning house. Start all over, get rid of personnel, start training different people. And previous policies, so the previous rules that were set were now revoked because they're starting fresh. The new leader doesn't know what's going on, so we're going to start fresh. This is how it's going to be, how it's going to run. And unfortunately, the Israelites became the target of many of those changes. Bible scholars believe the reason for the concern with the Israelites was that there is an outsider person that came into power and saw that a threat. All these massive amounts of people would have been a threat. They're looking at a threat. Even though they weren't a threat, they were working in perfect harmony and working together. But the outsider was like, wow, we can't have this. So the Israelites were now forced into being slaves. They became field hands, brick makers, builders, and janitors. And during these hard times, the Israelites continued to grow. And due to the growth, Pharaoh ordered the Hebrew midwives to kill all the male newborn children, and the midwives refused to kill them. And Pharaoh then ordered the Egyptians to throw the babies into the Nile River. What an awful thing. What a horrible thing. But what Pharaoh was trying to do was trying to stop the growth. And it didn't matter what kind of repression that they put. It just seems like the more the repression that was put on, the more that they began to grow. And that's kind of how life happens with us. When it seems like when we are just continuing to go forward and things are coming at us and we just keep on marching, God just says, okay, here you go. Here's more blessings. You can just keep moving on. Keep moving forward. And God never wants us to stop. He never wants us to stop growing. He wants us to keep moving forward. Because if we stop, we're going to miss the target. We're not going to make it to where we need to be and where God wants us to be. So there was a young couple that had a baby boy, and not wanting him to die, they hid him for 3 months. I couldn't imagine doing that to my child. You know, at first it's fun when you play hide and seek with a child. You say, you go hide, I'll go find you. You get that few moments of peace and quiet. But that wasn't like that. They took their child and put him in amongst some bushes and made a basket for him and put sap around it and just kind of laid him there because they were scared that if they found this precious baby that the Egyptians would kill him. So in desperation, the parents had to abandon this baby. They were thinking, they were doing what was best for that child, and just said, God, it's in your hands. Right. You know what is best. You go for it, and you do what is necessary. A little bit of the story. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river to take a bath and found the basket, and the child was born into poverty and slavery. We're talking about Moses today. Right. He was just a young child, and he went from living a poor life to living a life of splendor, just in an instant. The Egyptians considered the Nile River to be God. Actually, Egyptians considered everything to be a god. They had multiple gods. Gods for the rain, the grass, any wood, you name it. They had a god for everything. So when the princess found Moses, or found the baby in the river, she thought that it was their God blessing her with the child. So she took it in open arms. She wasn't going to allow anything to happen to that child. And especially since she heard that child cry. If anyone's heard a newborn cry, that just breaks your heart. It doesn't matter who you are, how big or a tough guy that you are. Have you ever seen a big tough guy hold a baby? They just begin to go, and they're making silly faces. So that just goes with the way that it is for anybody. When they're holding a newborn child, they hear the cry of a child, they're just going to say, no. Leave this child alone. So she adopted him and named him Moses. So Moses, because he grew up in a very wealthy home, Pharaoh's home, he had the finest education. He had the finest military training and social training. So he looked like an Egyptian, talked like an Egyptian, yes, walked like an Egyptian. But there's one part that he did not allow to be like an Egyptian, that was his heart. Right. His heart was not of an Egyptian. And as things began to happen in his life, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew person. And he could have just ignored the situation, but something within his heart knew that this was wrong. So he intervened. He stopped that fight, and because he intervened, he ended up killing the Egyptian. And things began to go a little bit south from there because he thought, okay, no one saw me. No one saw a thing. I'm close. I'm safe. I'm going to be okay. But then two Hebrews were fighting each other, and he was going to say, hey, no, you guys can't do this. Stop fighting. And then they turned to him and said, what, are you going to kill one of us like you did the Egyptian? Right then and there, he knew he had to get out of town because what he did was against their law. So he fled for his life. He dropped everything. He just ran away. He ended up on the outposts of Midian, and he remained there for 40 years. And through those 40 years were 40 years of training. He didn't understand what was going on, but God knew. God was preparing him to be a leader. He was born in poverty, raised in prosperity, and ended up living in the backside of Egypt. And God was preparing Moses for an even greater and more effective ministry in the future. God did not abandon Moses and his people. This was all part of God's plan from the very, very beginning. But God sometimes has to work things out in our lives. Yes. He has to make sure that we are ready to be the leader that He wants us to be before we are put into that situation. Could you imagine Moses at the age that he was all of a sudden just going, hey, I got to do, this is what I have to do, and not being prepared? If we're not prepared for a job, we are going to fail. That is setting us up for failure. Our God is never going to set us up for failure. Amen. He is always going to be preparing a way for us. He's always going to be helping us and making us better. So when we're in that position, we will be the leader that He wants us to be. Exodus 2, chapter 24. It says, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered His covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So 3 things were happening while it seemed nothing was happening. God heard, God looked, and God called. I'm so thankful that God hears our cries. Yes. He looks down upon us. He knows what's going on, and He sends someone sometimes, people into our path. Or He calls us. Sometimes we're saying, God, you need to send a drummer to our church. You might be praying that, and all of a sudden you get a little nudge, being like, hey, no, you're the drummer that I've called you to be. Brother Lemke was telling me he was praying for someone. He'd say, God, you need to send someone so we can have an organ player. And he just kept on praying that, and because they really needed an organ player. And God stopped him in his tracks and said, you need to look around, because you have an organ player in the midst. That was Steve Laurie. And Steve Laurie came to him and said, hey, I want to learn how to play the organ. So it's amazing how God just knows all of these things, and He just makes things happen. When reading about Moses, we are reminded that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what our background is. God is going to call whoever He chooses to be in that certain situation. Right. He is going to do what He has necessary. He's going to do what He needs to do. It doesn't matter if you are rich or if you're poor, if you come from the east side or the west side. God is still going to look for who He needs to be. So we can either benefit from it or we can rise above it, our failure. Today, Brother Lau, as I was painting, he showed me some mistakes that I made. And it was to help me be better at my job. And that's exactly what God does. God will show us saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you try doing this, because this will help you be a better Christian. Get rid of this so you can be a better leader. Or start doing this so you can do better in this area. And some of us, and probably lots of us, had to learn the school of hard knocks.
Yes.
It's the worst school to go to ever, but we all choose to go and just apply. And for some reason, we just get into the school of hard knocks. There's no tuition, there's no nothing, and there's no graduation. We just go through it. And sometimes it's year 1, year 2, year 10, year 12, but we just continue to go through it. Moses, the son of a slave, his bed was a basket that drifted into the Nile River. He was picked up by the Pharaoh's daughter and raised in a place of great luxury. And now he is in the middle of the desert in total darkness. Sometimes we feel like we're in darkness.
Yes.
God says, this is what I want you to do. And we start doing it. And we don't start hearing from God for a while.
Yeah.
We just feel like, God, hello? You just kind of left me stranded here. He didn't leave you stranded there. He just continued to prepare it, making sure that what He's asked you to do, that you just become better at it and more efficient at it. After 40 years of working with his father-in-law, Moses met with God in the desert. Came to Mount Sinai and saw a bush burning and blazing with fire that did not consume it. The burning bush caught his attention. The bush kept burning because it contained the very presence of God. The Shekinah glory of the Almighty settled there. Now, Moses did not know that it was God's presence. So Moses took a closer look. As he got a little bit closer, the Bible tells us that in Exodus 3:5, it says, "And he said, Draw not nigh hither, but put off thy shoes from thy feet, from thy place where thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, and he was afraid to look upon God. God then explained what he was doing while Moses was in the wilderness. Exodus 3:7, Then the Lord said, I have seen the troubles of my people have suffered in Egypt. And I have heard the cries when the Egyptians hurt them. I know about their pain. Now I will go down and save my people from the Egyptians, and I will take them from that land and lead them to a good land where they can be free from these troubles. It is a land filled with many good things. Many different people live in that land, the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. This was good news for Moses. He was excited. Finally, something's going to go right for these people. I'm so excited for them. But the next part shocked him. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, and thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. 40 years ago, he was running for his life, but now he hesitated to move. Back 40 years ago, he was moving, he was doing whatever, and then all of a sudden, all the excuses come. Isn't that funny when God says, I want you to do this, or we've been praying for something? That's when we tell God, whoa, you've got the wrong person. I'm not able to do it, but someone else can do it better than I can. So the excuses were you felt inadequate. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? Exodus 3:11, But Moses said to God, I am not a great man. How can I be the one to go to Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt? Ignorant. What should I tell them? Verse 13, Then Moses said to God, But if I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors sent me, then the people ask, What is his name? What should I tell them? Insecure. What if they don't believe me? Then Moses said to God, But the Israelites will not believe me when I tell them that you sent me. They will say, The Lord did not appear to you. Inferior, I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue. Verse Exodus 4:10 says, Then Moses said to the Lord, But Lord, I am telling you, I am not a good speaker. I have never been able to speak well, and that hasn't changed since you started talking to me. How could you say that to the Lord?
Because he didn't want to speak.
Wow. I am not a good speaker. You know that. I speak slowly and don't use the best words. This is how I felt when I first had to preach, or was asked to preach. I was so scared of to want to be where I am now, just standing in front of people and talking. But I have a little bit of a speech impediment with my S's, and I stutter and I stammer. And I say words like last week when I just blurted out sausages. And so I understand where he's coming from. Sometimes we feel insufficient. Oh Lord, please send someone else to do it. Exodus 4:13, But Moses says, My Lord, I beg you, send someone else, not me. We've all been there.
Oh, yes.
In all those situations, we tell God, I can't do this because of that. Or send Brother Lau's better at doing that. He's better at teaching Bible study. So you have him go teach that Bible study for me, and I'll go talk to that person instead. And so we kind of go around in circles, and finally, God has a way of just wearing us down.
Yes, he does.
Because he just keeps on saying, this is what it's going to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Moses gave up and listened. Exodus 3:14 says, And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. So I am the God who always was, who always is, who will always will be. I am the God who is eternally present. I am the great self-existing God. I am, that is the name you can use. I am the one who can help them. I am the promise.
Hallelujah.
So Moses' excuses are very like our own. And we use many of those excuses for anything in life, just not serving the Lord, but if we're put in a certain job position or whatever the case is, sometimes we have excuses so we don't have to do a particular job. And God may be asking somebody here today to do something. You never know. But God may have asked, so you have said, and I've said this when God called me to preach. You want me to do what? No, not me. I don't know how to speak properly. I'm not very good at. I'm just a newbie. I don't know what to say. I can't do those things. I'm shy. And that's the one that I use. I am generally a shy person. You may not think that, but I am generally shy. I have to muster up a whole lot of strength and courage if I'm around a whole bunch of new people to say, "Hi, I'm John." Right. And it's just something that we just have to work over. Exodus 4:11 says, "And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say." In other words, he was saying, I am the one that created everybody. I made you with your limitations. And I want to use you to bring me glory. I will be your mouth. I will give you the words to say. And if you really need help, Aaron will go and help you. But I really feel that God gives us the words to speak.
Yes, He
If
does.
anyone has ever witnessed to somebody and you get so shy and you just start talking to the person, and all of a sudden you go, what did I just say? And they're like, yeah, I would really like to come to church. I didn't know that about God. It's just kind of amazing how God uses you. Remember one time I was at Midas and the guys were talking gospel, or something, I can't remember exactly what they were talking about. I think it was about the book of Romans, or the Roman Empire, and the crucifixion of Jesus. And something prompted me, there was a little toolbox, so I stood up on top of the toolbox, and I was about this high, and I was looking at all the mechanics. And I just started preaching to them. And eventually there was like a tap, the tap turned off, and everyone's like, wow, we had no idea. And I was like, what did I just say? I had no idea what I said. I have no idea. But I guess I gave them a little bit of lesson about the crucifixion of Jesus and the things that happened. And one guy apologized to me because he was being really rude and ignorant, and was like, well, I had no idea that those things happened. So God uses our words. He uses our mouths to accomplish what He wants to do. So God takes away the excuses. Finally, Moses went back to Egypt. He let Aaron speak only for one time. And he did such a terrible job that Moses never let him talk again. Isn't that funny how that works out? We say, God, you have to bring this person to do it. That person does it. And you're like, get out of the way. I'll just do it.
Right.
Sometimes it's just better off if we just say, God, okay, I will do it. Because eventually God's just going to put you in that position anyways. So Moses did all his own talking. Moses returned to Egypt. It's not easy for leaders to come back.
No.
It's actually one of the hardest things for a leader to do is admit your mistakes.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what area of leadership. If you've been a captain of a sports team and you let your team down because of you were irate on the court yelling at the referees, and it's hard for a leader to say, hey, I'm sorry, I acted not a proper way. And many times we do expect so much of leaders, and we expect so much of them, and we put so much pressure on them, and sometimes that's why it's hard for them to bounce back, because they want to carry that load again. Sometimes there's a trust that has been broken. Moses was at this time hopefully equipped and prepared because of his past. We should never dwell on the past. The
No.
past is our past.
That's right.
We can't change the past.
Right.
We can't change what we did yesterday because it happened. But we can change
Right.
our steps going forward.
That's right.
If we look back at our past mistakes, our past failures, we can learn how to use those things saying, hey, all right, I have some tools now. I can be a better leader in this area. If I come against this, I know how to avoid it. And I know how to get over that obstacle. So he walked and talked and rubbed shoulders with the Egyptians. He kind of had an understanding of how the Egyptian culture worked. He understood what was going on. So he was the right man for the job. Moses was also prepared because he failed. He understood what disappointment was. He understood what failure was. One moment we have so much, the next moment it's gone. And when there's no one else to lean on, we have no choice but to lean on God.
That's right.
I think sometimes that's God. Sometimes God does the weirdest things. We try to lean on people. I need your help. Brother Dan, I need your help. And then God says, no. The only person that can help me is God.
Amen.
God is always there.
Yes.
Brother Dan's not always going to be there for me. But God will always be there.
Yes.
Right.
Brother Nathan Shue, he's my bestest friend. He's not always going to be there to help me in my troubles and trials. But God will always be there for me.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
In those lonely moments, we are forced to examine ourselves, our beliefs, our values, and our future. We understand what really matters most in our life, our relationship to God and our relationship to family when we fail. We start to prioritize going, oh, if I made a mistake, well, if I do this better next time, if I do this a little bit next time. It helps us to build and get to where we need to be. When we're on the top, when life is good, we forget about God.
Yes. Sometimes.
When we're in the valley is when things aren't going so good. It's kind of when we start to remember, hey, God, I need you now.
Yes.
I'm not saying we always forget about God when we're on the mountaintop. But sitting on the mountaintop is nice. It's refreshing. And in the valley, it's the hard things.
It's fresh.
And we neglect and overlook the things that really matter. Just remember, we need to always remember that God is there. He's the one that put us on the mountaintop.
Hallelujah.
And He is the one that can bring us to the valley.
Yes.
Just as fast as we were put onto the mountaintop.
Yeah.
So the journey back to Egypt, I'm sure was long, and I'm sure it was hard, thinking he was going to have to face his past.
Think about it.
It's one of the hardest things to do is face your past. Before I got into the ministry, I think I've shared this before, I have an older son. His name's Jonah. Hopefully you'll get to meet him one day. He's a busy man. He's living in Vancouver. He's 20 years old. When I was in high school, got a young lady pregnant. And that was hard for me. And so I moved to after high school, I moved to Vancouver. I didn't see Jonah for a long time. About 5 years old. And I told God, I was praying and said, God, if you're calling me to the ministry, what is it that I need to do? And God said, you have to make things right in your past. One of the hardest things for me to do was pick up that phone and phone Brooke, is her name, Jonah's mom. And I dialed the number, hung up, dialed the number, hung up, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can deal with this. I don't want to deal with the hurt. I failed. That's what it was. I failed. I did not want to fail again. So I called her up and I said, hey, do you have a moment to talk? She's like, let me call you back in 10 minutes. I said, you're not going to really understand this. You might, but I said, I'm called to the ministry and I got to make things right with you and Jonah. And so, we patched things up. There was forgiveness that was there. And now I have a relationship with my son. But it was so hard to face my past. But sometimes in life, we're going to have to face our past.
Yes.
We're going to have to deal with our past mistakes. That becomes a turning point in our life. And that's sometimes how God will begin to do His work when we begin to mend those broken fences.
You're right.
Exodus 3:1 says, and the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. So there was a positive response when Moses was there and saying, hey, this is what is going on. He went to Pharaoh with a sense of courage. He had no fear and there was no hesitation. He just stood at Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And I really believe that he pointed and said, let my people go. He said it with such a stern voice, not the old Moses, but the brand new Moses that spent 40 years preparing, and working, and understanding, and learning. And this went on for some time. I couldn't imagine what Moses or what Pharaoh was thinking after all the plagues, the plagues of lice. And Moses would say, let my people go or God will do this. So, plagues of lice, frogs, flies, bugs, darkness, water, blood.
Yes.
For Pharaoh was stubborn.
Yes, he
He
was.
should have just learned from his mistake and just said, yeah, you know what, just take all those people and get out of here. Just go. Because what he was really doing is he wasn't really hurting himself per se. He was hurting his entire kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he was.
Oh, yeah.
Every time there was a plague, Pharaoh would say, though, I will let your people go, but just take the plague away. So then that would go on for a while. Then all of a sudden the plague was gone, and then he said, I changed my mind. I'm not letting your people go. There was 10 plagues in all. And each plague was a challenge, not really a challenge, but was to convince Pharaoh that God was superior to their gods.
Right.
So when I say God, it's a big G. God's is little g. So Nile turns to blood. And this was against their Nile god. Frogs, against their frog goddess. Beetles, divine scarab. Flies, fly god. Livestock death, cow deities. Boils, divine healer. Hail, storm god. Locust, goddess of fertility. Darkness, sun god. And death, god of life. So after the plague of darkness, Moses warned Pharaoh, if you don't let us go, the firstborn of every child in Egypt will die, including your son. And that wasn't just an idle threat. He was being serious now, and it's too bad, really, that Pharaoh did not, after everything that went on, could not see that our God was way stronger than his gods.
That's right.
And even the magicians and they could not replicate most of these things, because they even said, we can't do this. This is something else that is divine. Pharaoh did not listen. The death angel came through and swept through Egypt and killed every firstborn. And Pharaoh's son was killed, and he was heartbroken. The first, because of that, because of what he did, he wanted to seek vengeance. Pharaoh should have learned from his failure. He should have learned from all the 10 failures. But he did not. What he did when his heart was broken, before he got super angry, he just said, go. More or less, he probably said, I don't want to see your faces around here anymore. Just get out of here and leave. Don't come back. Moses confronted the greatest and most powerful ruler in the ancient world. Those events were just the beginning of Moses' long road of leadership. He now had to lead the Israelites to the promised land, and God did not forget his promise about his people. Psalms 105, 42 and 43 says, for he remembered his holy promise in Abraham his servant, and he brought forth his people with joy and is chosen with gladness. They left Egypt with ease, and there was excitement. All those it being in with all those millions of people, the excitement that no longer are they going to have to wake up tomorrow and be whipped and beat and be taskmaster, go to and build brick and mortar and just work so hard. They were free.
Hallelujah.
God led them day and night, and finally they found themselves at the edge of the Red Sea. And they left Egypt. But at that time, as they were traveling, Pharaoh changed his mind, and the people were now frustrated because now they were at the edge of the Red Sea, nowhere to go. They could see the camp. They could see Pharaoh's men coming as they set up camp, and they really said, "What kind of leader are you to bring us to this place? We were better off in Egypt. You brought us here to die." Moses was probably thinking, was probably not thinking this, was thinking this. I didn't bring you here to die. God has made us a promise. And trying to calm everyone down. So Moses began to pay the price for leadership. And being a leader is hard. You're carrying the weight of people.
Yes.
That's what a leader is. First he had to deal with the Egyptians, and now he's dealing with his own people. And he was at the point of no return. Couldn't say, "Okay, everyone, let's just start swimming." They couldn't say, "Let's go back to Egypt," because Pharaoh was waiting and would have slaughtered all of them. So you're he's in a tough situation. Key is real leaders will not quit no matter how tough things get. They will just continue they'll think of a way to make things work. And that's what Moses did. Moses wasn't going to quit. He had the promise of God that God was going to lead them to the promised land. Right. And he was going to hold on to that promise. So he just really said, we're going to pray. We're going to move forward.
Good.
Because that's what we need to do, like I said, is that to continue to move in that forward direction.
Amen.
Yes.
So Moses told the Israelites to stand firm. Exodus 14:13 says, "And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever. And the Lord shall fight for you and shall hold your peace." I love Exodus 14:14. The Lord shall fight for you. He was telling everybody there, don't worry, because God is going to fight this battle for us. We just have to have the faith in Him. At the edge of the Red Sea, Moses held out his staff. The waters parted. Now that would be a spectacular sight to see. Just being able to walk through the Red Sea and seeing that giant wall of water. Would there have been fish that was swimming, and would there have been things that you'd be able to see? I'm sure they probably weren't doing a lot of wow, this is really neat. They probably just really wanted to get to the other side. But if we could travel back in time, we would have been the ones going, wow, this is really neat. And when the Israelites crossed on dry ground, and when they made it to the other side, the water collapsed on Pharaoh's army, and they were set free. This was not the end for Moses. Moses led the people into the wilderness. And the people began to complain and whine. The Israelites complained that there was no water. So God provided them water from a rock. They complained that there was no food, so God gave them manna from heaven. They also complained that they didn't like the manna every day and they wanted meat. And then they got meat, and then they just gorged themselves until they were really throwing up. God gave them a whole lot of quail. And then they complained they were sick of meat. It's like telling your mom, I learned this. This may not be like for all moms, so I'm not trying to offend any mom. I told my mom a few times, Mom, I love your tuna casserole. And she made it, kid you not, every single day.
Eventually, I'm tired of it.
I love it. Please don't make it all the time. Then I said, Mom, I love your macaroni and cheese. And then she switched to that for a long term.
Oh,
So you got to be careful what you say. Absolutely. But eventually Moses brought them to a place of victory. It took 40 years in the wilderness to learn the lessons God was teaching. 40 years. We may be going through a tough trial in our lives. We may feel like we're in the wilderness, and sometimes I talked a little bit about just wandering on Sunday, about being too far from home. And sometimes we get to a place where we're wandering. We're just in the wilderness, just wandering around. We feel like we're lost, not sure what God wants us to do. But I just want to let everyone know today is God knows every step that you're taking.
Yes, He does.
He knows the direction that you're going, and He's
Yes.
orchestrated every step. He's orchestrated where you are right now. And sometimes we may think, God, why am I in this place? Because He's trying to teach us something. He's trying to continue to move us to where He wants us to need to be. In times of difficulty, there will be times of blessing. And He has not forgotten about us. He is still there in the midst of our lives. No matter how hard it may seem, no matter what chaos is going on, God is in the middle.
Yes, He is.
To fail is to be fully human. I really believe that we're all fully human.
Oh, definitely.
God is aware of our limitations, and sometimes that's why He puts limitations on us.
Yeah.
There's only so much that we can go through, and I'm so thankful that God only puts so much upon our shoulders. And sometimes it feels like that we got millions of pounds on our shoulders. Sometimes God is teaching us something. He's saying, okay, just come on, take a few more steps. And that load becomes a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. True success is not avoiding failure, but learning what to do with it.
Yes.
True success is not avoiding failure, but learning what to do with it. To fail, it does not mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you fail at life because you've had a mistake happen or there's been a failure in your life. Don't beat yourself up because you failed at something in your life. Babe Ruth. What is Babe Ruth known for? Baseball. Home runs.
Most strikeouts.
Yes.
That's right. He's remembered for his home runs, but he also set a record for the most strikeouts. A lot of people forget that.
He was always going for that home run.
And no one is a failure until he stops trying. The day that we stop trying is the day that we really become a failure. And I'm not trying to be mean or harsh. Thomas Edison made over 5,000 attempts before he finally invented a light bulb that worked.
Yes.
He just kept on working. He was like, I'm going to get this right sooner or later.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team because he was too short.
Really?
He was. He eventually became a legend in the NBA. Actually, after he was cut, he went home and practiced, and in that summer he grew to like 8 or 9 inches. So he did a huge growth spurt. And so him practicing, but he wasn't going to allow that to affect him. He's just going to go home and keep on trying.
Yeah.
Muggsy Bogues, he's the shortest NBA player. He's like 5'1".
Wow.
So all these, we could even continue on and just talk about all these different people, but everyone somewhere along the line had a failing moment in their life. But they just continue to continue on. Failure is never final if you get up more than you fall down.
That's true.
I would not be here today if I allowed my past failure to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
There was a time where I just wanted to lay there and just get covered full of mud and dirt and just not have to do anything, but there was something that said, hey, you just got to keep going, keep trying, just keep going. The fear of failure is far greater than the failure itself.
Yes, it is.
If you have failed at something, just admit it and just say, yeah, I failed at it. I'm going to do better tomorrow. Focus on your future, not on the past.
That's right.
Tomorrow is our future. A few hours ago was the past. We can't change that.
That's right.
We can go to that next slide. Hopefully I have it in order. Should be ask yourself. Excellent. You don't have to answer. Don't answer these, but these are just a kind of thoughts. Do you ever feel like God has forsaken you, or that He can't see you? What is He trying to teach you right now? Is our situation ever really hopeless? And are you in the desert of life right now? I almost said dessert. Are you in the desert right now, looking around and thinking, where is God? What is the greatest lesson God is teaching you right now? Or what is it, you could even rephrase that, and what is the greatest lesson God is teaching you today? Are you learning it? And sometimes we don't learn things right away.
No.
Sometimes not the first time or the second time, but eventually we begin to get it after, God says, okay, you're getting it. Just keep on going. And what improvements do you still need to make? And I really believe that we can all improve.
Oh, yes.
Go to the next slide. Should we make it real? If you're going to be successful as a leader, what are you going to have to overcome? There are things in our lives that we have to overcome. Obstacles, fears, things that limit us, that we are scared to try to do.
Yes.
Like I said, I was scared to death to teach. Brother Rand said, I want you to teach. First time I said no. Because as soon as I thought of public speaking, I was terrified of it. I would start getting sweats. And then finally, I was in minister's class. Pastor said, okay, you're all going to have a 10-minute message. I think I told you before. I spoke 4 minutes, and I just read my notes, and the mic just went like this. And I couldn't stop it. I had to use 2 hands. And I was like way down here. And I looked up, and the lady in our church, Sister Oscar, she was like, can't hear you. And I was like, that's it. My face went bright red. My ears went bright red. I started to get the sweats. All I wanted to do, actually I really felt like I wanted to get sick. But I just went through it, and then the Sunday morning, we got to watch them. And that was the worst. I'm okay with it now. But that's something that I had to get over. It wasn't just one of those things. And kind of the more that you do it, the more that you do something that you're not very good at, the easier it becomes. And our closing thought tonight as we all stand. This is a quote from Abraham Lincoln. My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with failure. I'll read that again. My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with failure. Let's pray tonight. Lord, you are worthy and you're mighty. We're so thankful that we can be in your presence. We're so thankful, God, for the things that you are teaching us. Lord, that you're teaching us how to be leaders in wherever we might be in life. Lord, I ask that you would continue to guide us, that you would continue to help us and strengthen us and bring understanding. Lord, sometimes we're wandering in the wilderness, not sure where to go. Lord, I ask that you would just lead our footsteps, that you would direct us, so we have an understanding, God, that what it is that you're trying to teach us. Oh, Lord, and just continue to help us to overcome those obstacles in our lives. Oh, Lord, we love you and we thank you. I ask that you would continue to touch each and every one of us throughout the rest of this week, God. In Jesus' name. Everyone say in Jesus' name.
Jesus' name.
Quick reminder, we have Brock Chavis this Sunday. Bring somebody. Amen. He's a fabulous speaker. He's a young man. And he's a good guy. You're dismissed in Jesus' name. And then there is, Campbell River does have Brock Chavis as well for those that would like to go. So if you want a double header to hear him twice, feel free to go.